But anyway, my point is, Steve, they got hit by the Dutch. It's hard to sink lower than getting no hits by the clog-wearing Dutchman. Great for metal music, but not so much for baseball traditionally. You know, if it was a battle of the bands and we lost to the Dutch, I accept this fate. Like, you know, we're clearly not as good as they are on it.
Friday could be interesting.
I already told Eric, I go, no matter what happens, it's gonna be fun. And then they pulled Steven Reinprecht, which is one of the ones that I made fun of on Friday. I was like, oh yeah, and I literally said it to Eric. I go, the Steven Reinprecht has been pulled, Eric. Yes, yes. Like I said, I'm gonna have fun, guys. And if the Aaron Rodgers news drops, if he is a Jet by Friday, holy crap, it might be a new record. I won't need a year end. I will just play that live stream. That'll be my year end. I will be in rare form at that point. If the Rodgers thing happens on Friday with the rest of the shit and the Dutch, that'll be my entire highlight reel. I'll just play the whole thing. Why don't they listen to me, Eric? Outside of the Aaron Rodgers thing, it is as I have foreseen. It was as the prophecy foretold. Nobody heeded my warning about the Dutch, and now they have stomped with their clog-wearing ways on our faces.
So based on that clip, it looks like Aaron Rodgers prevented us from just being able to use the one live stream, which would have been an epic live stream, but Aaron Rodgers did eventually become a Jet. But not in time to create just the one live stream to rule them all. So anyway, hello YouTube, welcome back to the channel, and this is part 3 of the year in review. I will keep the preamble pretty short because the middle section is already going to be long enough. So the way this is going to work is that I already showed a couple of clips off the top. Then there's going to be a large middle section where I just go through the list of videos. I'm not going to go through every single one of them, but I will highlight a few things and talk through a couple of the pieces of it. I do throw a couple of clips in there just to keep it interesting, but it does get a bit monotonous. So I think I'll put some timestamps on it if you want to kind of skip through it. But like I said, I do sneak a couple of clips in there. And then at the very end, I'll do a little bit of a conclusion, talk about a little bit of what I plan for the channel going forward, and then throw a bunch of clips at the end. This was probably the toughest one to put together because I had to go through a lot of material. And you'll get the gist of it here in a second as I go through a couple of the stats, if you will. So just to start off with, to keep it simple, this year we were at 191 different videos. So that doesn't count the video that you're watching right now, and it also doesn't count the New Year's Eve live stream coming up. So in total, we're looking at 193 videos, which is actually down from last year, but the runtime actually went up because we had a lot more of the collector conversations as well as podcast episodes. And I do talk a little bit about that in the middle section there. But overall, the end result of that is that we actually went above 12 days of runtime. So this year, and I'm going to read it off the screen, but you're going to have it right here. So this year, we actually went 12 days, 4 hours, 44 minutes, and 37 seconds. That is the runtime of the channel in 2023 if you played it from beginning to end. And again, that doesn't include this video, which is going to knock another 25, 30 minutes onto it. And then we've got the live stream, which will be probably about 2 to 3 hours before the end of the year. So all told, we got very close to probably the longest runtime for a single year on the channel. So that's because of a lot of the long form content, even though there were less videos. So with that said, before I send you to the middle section, I want to do 2 quick things, and that is to acknowledge the folks that invited me over to their channel for collaborations. So this time around, I'll just read off of it and go through them quickly. The first one was Baubles and Ball Cards, who had a series of different live streams early on in the year. So thank you to Baubles for inviting me, myself, and sometimes Eric as well, to participate in a lot of those. Next one on the list here would be Big Scott 35. I got a chance to be on that channel a couple different times, and the IRP as well, because you saw the clip off the beginning of the video. Next up, we've got Basketball Card Nerd, where I visited the channel in July, as well as K-Dub's High Five, which happened in August. Then Jason from Cards and Comics invited me over to the channel in September, and then finally I visited Pittsburgh at the end of September to wind down the collaborations for the year. I did participate, I believe, a couple of cameo appearances in a couple different channels, but these are the ones that I included in my playlist of different places that I've been this year. So thank you to all those folks for inviting me over to the channel. I do appreciate it. Now lastly here, before I send you over, I'm going to quickly read over, to the best of my ability as I was going through a lot of the different videos, I tried to jot down the different folks that actually appeared on the channel in some capacity, either through a collector conversation or on the live stream as part of a panel. So you will see some familiar names, but I'm going to go through these in no particular order, just as I was able to jot them down. I want to thank Amish Dave Archer, Jason, Cards and Comics already mentioned, Broncos 79, Steve, Brad 8671, Jake 90s B-Ball Cards, Andy, she blinded me from Refractors, Andy, Sports Card Investigator, 2 Andys, we got to make sure we cover both of them. Big Scott 35 already mentioned, Billy Cilio, Neo Cards and Comics, who visited a couple times, including towards the end of the year very recently, Mike Baseball Collector, Michael Ham, disputed YouTube Hall of Famer Bob Lewis. A few friends from the Discord that I'll acknowledge here. We got Paul V, we got Baubles, who I already mentioned a moment ago. We had Wes join us a couple of different times, including for one of the podcast episodes. You'll get a little more about that in the middle section. And Dakota Sports Card Anonymous, former YouTuber, retired YouTuber, former YouTuber, something in that vein. And to wind it down here on the list, last and certainly not least, we've got Steve Angel and John Wade Box Fan, who I also had a chance to chat with a couple of times throughout the year. And as an addendum, I also want to make sure I acknowledge frequent collaborators and resident troublemakers, Bobby Burrell, and I suppose Bougie Eric too. If nothing else, then for the like button. By the way, on this video, like all others, we will be charging him for the like button. So if you hit the like button, that would be really appreciated, and Eric will pay for it.
My favorite thing this past week was when we were having a legitimate conversation. I sat there just chilling. Let me set the scene. Let me set the scene. Hold on. Let me set the scene. It looked a little something like this. I'm sitting in the corner. It's not my show. Sitting in the corner. It's not my show. I'm just sitting in the corner chilling, playing the role of J Mac will be Brad Hartland of PSA Canada and AMG Collectibles. And all of a sudden we get Bougie Eric on the balls of all cards channel, and I have nothing to do with it. And it's fantastic. It was great. That was my favorite thing. It was wonderful.
It's the Bruins, so it should be pretty cheap.
Wow. Okay. I've said this before, and now it's starting again.
It's personal.
And I can't even blame Carlos this time.
No, you can't. That's the best part.
Nope. And I am as shocked as you, Carlos. I come on here, I say I want to play it straight, and you keep pressing the buttons. So you want to get Bougie Eric going, and Bougie Eric's going to show up.
I thought the B was for Bobbles and Brandon, not Bougie.
I'll tell you what the B's for.
See, Bobbles, this is on you. This is on you. I can bear no responsibility for any of these.
Oh, Carlos was being good, and I can't even believe I'm even saying this. But you unleashed the monster now. I came on your stupid show. I wanted to play it straight, and all you had to do is poke the bear.
So thank you again to Bobby and Eric for participating in whatever the hell this is. So thank you to everybody listed off here. If I forgot someone, I do apologize. I didn't go through every single second of the channel, but I tried my best to capture as many different names as I could find to try to at least acknowledge as many names as possible. So with that said, I'll send you off to the big long list of videos, and then when we come back, we'll do some final thoughts, and I'll send you the final clips montage to round out 2023. Now that all brings us to the section of it where I'm going to go through the 2023 videos in the playlist. It is publicly available, so if you want to check out the videos that were on the channel this year, they're all included in this playlist. I'm not going to go through all the videos, but this covers everything, including standalone videos, live streams, and everything in between. Now, beginning at the top, the very first video of the year, officially, not accounting the New Year's Eve episode, which carried over into 2023, we had a RIP Don West video where I believe I included some clips of Don West in it. And that was the first kind of newsy type video going with that. Then we get into talking 90s cards, player collecting the hobby with Jason from Cards and Comics. So that's the first of kind of my collector hobby talks that I did throughout the year. Jason was a great guest and I appreciate him coming on and joining a couple of different times throughout the year. And then the next one here is one of my favorite episodes, I guess, in the last couple of years, just because of the silliness that surrounds it a little bit. And that is the 2023 YouTube Sports Card Hall of Fame ballot. And I guess we'll be coming up on one of those again probably this upcoming time. Although I have no idea exactly how I intend to approach that one. And next one up here is another one of the Hobby Talk Collectors episodes with my buddy Alex, Joe Sakic 19XX, where we talked about wrestling cards and the weird dynamics of niche collecting in that genre. Now going forward, that is something that I'll talk about a little bit towards the end of this episode, and I'll talk more about it in the new year. I am actually intending to do a little something that's going to be related to the wrestling and wrestling cards thing, but I'll talk more about that later. But for now, just bear in mind that that was one of the other collector conversations, and I had a couple of different wrestling related videos throughout the course of the year. I do intend to do some more of those, but I've got some ideas of how I want to approach that going forward. Next up is one of the many occasions where Beckett does a thing and drops the ball. They had a lot of their communication issues throughout the year, so a lot of those videos were having some fun with that element of it. Then we had YouTube content, Player Super Collecting and Vintage, with John, Wade Boggs fan, another one of the collaborations throughout the year. I was very happy to be able to get a lot of those collaborations done throughout the year, and this was another one of them, and this is still in the early part of the year. Next up was a response to the YouTube Sports Card Hall of Fame controversy, because of course there always has to be a controversy, and this is a situation where Dustin, Sports Card Dad, made a video and then kind of led into a series of videos related to it. Had a lot of fun with it in the early part of the year. The YouTube Sports Card Hall of Fame in all its glory is usually good for this kind of thing. And with that come related videos and topics on the live stream that relate to it. And that's kind of the way the live streams go for me. And like I said, throughout the course of this one, I will play some clips for you. I tried to pick and choose some different ones that covered different areas and different topics, mostly just fun stuff that we were talking about during the course of the year. But a lot of these live streams do cover not only things that are going on hobby-wise that I feel like talking about when we get to the live stream or that people bring up, but also the fact is it kind of lets you chronologically follow the way things were going and what people were talking about at those different points in time. Next up here that I want to highlight is the CSC show recap for January. And that was the first of several CSC shows that I actually attended, which actually kind of renewed an interest in me in some of those smaller shows, quote unquote, because for the most part, for several years, I'd pretty much only been doing expos. And it's kind of fun, even though I'm not going to go out of my way to run through a lot of the different small shows that get put out throughout the year. The CSC shows I have enjoyed, and I have appreciated the way that the promoters have done a lot of them. They haven't all been perfect, but I have enjoyed some of those aspects of it, and I'm looking forward to doing another one in January
in 2024. Then we've got 2 different episodes here. One of them was the BIC podcast episodes that I did sporadically for a bit. We do become a little bit more regular with that a little bit later on, but at this point in time, it was just sporadic depending on whether I had a topic that I wanted to talk about, and it was a lot of these audio version episodes. Then we got a discussion I had with Mike Baseball Collector for content monetization of the hobby. We talked about a couple different topics. That was a fun conversation. Then we got the Super Bowl predictions, the impromptu post-game Super Bowl live. I've enjoyed doing that the last couple of years, hopefully. I intend to do that probably next year if the opportunity presents itself. And of course, depending on the matchup and how interesting it is, I'll kind of play it by ear. But I do enjoy doing those and inviting some folks on to chat post Super Bowl. Episode 128 here is one of those ones where I had a little bit of fun with the thumbnail. And I believe that was related to St. Patrick's Day, if I'm not mistaken. And then beyond that, we've got AEW versus WB in cards, the wrestling card hobby talk. Like I said, I didn't get to make too many of those videos throughout the course of the year, but there'll be something that I'm working on that may be a good landing spot for some of that stuff. Next up, we've got a series of episodes here. So live number 129 still talked about the World Baseball Classic. The little graphic on there talks about Mike Trout striking out in the World Baseball Classic and my appreciation of Shohei Ohtani at that time.
Everybody wants to be a part of this because it's gonna be something special. I think being able to represent Team USA and go out there and have the whole country behind you, it's gonna be pretty cool. The whole main reason we're here is to win this thing. It's not, all the other stuff's great, being able to play with each other, get to know each other a little bit more. But there's only one thing on our mind, is trying to win this whole thing.
Am I happy I did it? Yeah, because Mike Trout sucks now. So
that was kind of a fun thing to play off of quite a bit on the live streams. Then we had 2023 Prism WBE, where I did a little bit of a review and talked about a couple of different cards that stood out to me, including the Shockmaster, which was kind of a fun throwback for the wrestling side of things. In that same vein, I did a Talking WrestleMania 39 and Predictions episode with Amish Dave Archer, so that was a fun one to include. Next up here, at live number 130 was the BGS grading scale, Golden Touch, and then the whole thing with Mint Collective. So as you can see through the different live streams, we were basically marking the calendar as things kind of went forward. And the next one here was a fun one. Beckett reversing the new grading scale change that we had talked about in that one. Like I said, Beckett, it wasn't a good year for them. If I was going to say a company that really struggled this year, especially in the early part of the year, with their messaging, their communication, all those things, Beckett was definitely one that got quite a bit of abuse, and we definitely had our fair share of talking about their various missteps. Then next up here, we had the sudden resignations in Panini and Fanatics releasing a 2023-2024 NBA Topps product. So this was the first kind of opening real salvo. Obviously, the licensing thing had already happened, but now we're going into more direct and specific damages happening towards Panini. And we all started kind of looking in the direction of Fanatics and asking ourselves, okay, so what's the next shoe to drop? What's the next shoe to drop? And throughout the course of the year, we did have a couple different ones. Then here we had Panini suing Fanatics. So it was one of several lawsuits in the hobby that happened around that time. Then the pre-expo impromptu live, we had that. A couple of videos relating to chronicling the expo, the spring one. And then 133 was the 2023 Spring Expo episode. Here I did a review on the Golden Touch, King of Collectibles on Netflix. Did a little bit of a review on it, talking about my thoughts once I went through watching the entire series as a BIC episode. Then here, Alex is back, and we talk about some Spring Expo and wrestling cards. So again, throughout the course of it, I was able to sprinkle in some of those collector conversations, which was a lot of fun. This one was 2019 all over again, where we had another grading scandal, and I kind of pointed back to one from 2019, where I literally used footage from 2019 to explain the similarities, and basically that a lot of my thoughts were almost exactly the same. I believe this was the whole Evan Mathis thing. With the trimming and how kind of that brought the conversation back into it. And then how Evan Mathis was one of those folks that was being referenced a lot in 2019 and how that all played into it, the Slabgate thing and how what is old is new again. And that's kind of how things tend to play out quite a bit. And then Jason Cards and Comics is back to talk the Golden Touch. We actually had a more extensive conversation about it, talking about trimming and cards, vintage cards in the hobby. So as I said, when it comes to a lot of those conversations, especially with somebody like Jason, who's been around and has quite a bit of experience and collects in a lot of different categories, it allows us to go into a lot of these topics in a little bit more depth. So it was a great conversation. And again, I appreciate his participation in that. This one here was where we had Fanatics acquiring PWCC per the Action Network. So when that story came out, that was a big one because that was Fanatics kind of continuing to grow its different verticals and adding now a platform on top of all the other aspects of it, hobby-wise, that they already had. And they were adding more and more things to the growing juggernaut that was coming up here in the hobby at that time. And like I said, we've already talked a little bit about a couple of Fanatics stories. And obviously that was a continued theme throughout the course of the entire thing. Now scrolling ahead, things kind of stabilized for a bit. And then we get to this, where CSG and CGC merge under CGC grading. So they decided to do a unified branding, which was actually a pretty good idea. And it's continued on to the present. So we're going to see long-term how that ends up working. But I do think it makes more sense now to have a unified look as far as the holders, rather than having two completely distinct concepts as far as the TCG and sports card grading. So we'll see how people take to it in the long run. But in the short run, it's been about 6-7 months since they actually did that merger internally. Then from here, I'll draw your attention to this live stream excerpt where we talked about the 1 of 1 Magic the Gathering Lord of the Rings card, which was pulled and then graded by PSA. And that included some stories from Brad Hartland from PSA Canada, friend of the channel, was actually a participant in getting that card into PSA's hands and then getting it back over to the owner. So we were able to give a little bit more information on that story. And that's an excerpt from the live stream where we were able to talk about that in some depth. Skipping ahead a fair bit now, we actually get into one of our fun controversies of the year. We've got two that we'll kind of fixate on here. And the first one was the Rock Autos, the Chasing Cardboard controversy. And the video that I made, this is probably the most successful, just standalone video on the channel the entire year. And then the live stream that followed also did very well on it as a result of that. And that was talking about the whole situation where Chasing Cardboard had some autographs that were put into question. Now, I'll skip ahead a little bit. Later on, they would go and get the results, and the Rock autographs would come back authenticated, but a Ty Cobb autograph, which was also referenced as part of that whole thing, did not come back authenticated. And really what the conversation centered around was kind of the way that Chasing Cardboard and Ty from Chasing Cardboard responded to it. So that's kind of, I think, what led to a lot of the controversy. Otherwise, it could have been something that would have played out very quickly, and it wouldn't have been, I don't think, anywhere near as a conversation piece or a story. But as I said, it was the first of our kind of controversies throughout the year, but this was definitely one that dominated the conversation during that time period, at least for a couple of weeks there. Here is live number 146, which was the week of the National, where we had a little bit of fun. One of the clips is going to be based off of that, which is fun. And I believe that was also the first indirect cameo of Ed Weskergriff, who's been around, obviously, and then also with the IRP. I've chatted with Ed a couple different times, but it was kind of funny because that was the first time he was on the channel. But when you see the clip, I think it'll make more sense.
Hey guys, I'm gonna have to say goodbye. My battery's basically dying. I want to say bye before I leave. Our
No, no
power's out.
worries.
I can't get it
Thank you,
done.
Ed. Thank you, Scott, for joining in.
We got no
Appreciate you.
power, Carlos.
Ed, right now it's going great. You hang out, you hang in there. Aaron Rodgers will protect you. You're fine. You're all in the darkness. You're fine.
Take
All
care.
right,
I'll see
y'all
you.
have a good one.
We'll see you tomorrow.
Take it easy. Have a good night, boys.
All right,
Bye,
Andy.
guys.
I'm going to look for you tomorrow, Andy.
Scott, I'll be around.
All right.
Look
See
for
y'all.
the big camera.
All right.
Take care, Scott.
Eric, this is the last couple of minutes have been my favorite part of this podcast.
It's been fun.
I enjoyed that we were literally having a conversation with Scott and then Ed in the darkness.
He's in the dark. You can't make that up.
You know what? Eric, I am clipping this entire last segment as the greatest national advertising that has ever been.
Will this make the highlights at the end of the year? It's better.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. And that little moment was the first appearance of Ed Weskergriff on the channel. Maybe down the road we'll be able to get him in there with a proper appearance, but it was kind of fun to have him in there as one as part of one of the live streams. Then we had the national postmortem, as we do. We do have our national coverage, even though we don't go to the national ourselves. We invite some folks on that can kind of chat on it and speak on it, and it's a fun conversation in that. And I believe in this national postmortem is where Jason Cards and Comics gave us the story of him getting the 68 Topps Clemente. So that was another great story and conversation that we were able to have as part of it, which is great. Next up here was part 2 of the whole Chasing Cardboard thing, where they did their big reveal. And that's where I said I skipped ahead already from before, but that's where they revealed that the 2 Rock autographs had passed authentication, but their entire live stream reveal, as overproduced as it was, conveniently skipped over the Ty Cobb autograph. And that was one of those things where, like I said, it was a very controversial topic at the time, but it was amusing to me that even at that point where they had the opportunity to put the whole thing to bed overall and kind of take their victories where they had them, is that they still had a way to make it a lot more discussion worthy and kind of trample down their own victory. So even in the course of their victory lap, they kind of shot themselves in the foot. But it was one of those things where, that's why I said here, part 2 of how not to take criticism, and I outlined some of that. So I was able to get some videos out of it. I can't complain from that perspective. But it was interesting the way that whole thing played out. Now, moving on here, this BIC episode number 38 is special because it was actually the first time I introduced the panel version of it. It was the 5% More Mature Mondays, that was uploaded on the Tuesday. And it was a kind of a fun change of pace. It was an opportunity that presented itself because Bobbles had actually had a podcast that he had started on the reselling side of things, and it didn't quite work out. And we had discussed behind the scenes the possibility of maybe doing something, and then we kind of roped Eric into joining us to do that, and we were able to have it. And it's actually been a lot of fun. I've enjoyed having this as a contrast to it. I'll talk a little bit more about it at the end as far as kind of plans for the channel going forward, but I feel like it's been a pretty good addition to kind of the lineup and rotation and allowed for there to be a consistent video and have a podcast episode consistently every week, which I've very much enjoyed. Now, this next podcast episode actually talks about Bubbles hurting feelings, because that's what he does. And then also Jeff Wilson's new mega shop, the Cards HQ, which was the first kind of our direct reference to it as we ended up talking to it a couple different times. And we'll definitely be talking to it more in the new year as it moves closer to opening. So it'll be interesting to see what ends up being the focus of the conversation once we actually get into it. And then here I had John Wade Boggs fan back to do some more talking hobby, and both he and Jason Cards and Comics were a couple of folks that I brought back a couple of different times because in the course of conversation it became clear we had a couple of different things we could certainly talk about. So that was another great conversation with John where he gave us a little bit of a breakdown also on the special card that Leaf was going to make for the Boggs Trust, which is something he was able to showcase a little bit, and then obviously he had a video on his own channel where he was able to show it off properly. Then we get into the Expo vlogs through the different days. I was able to do a live stream for the first time on the show floor of the expo, so I was able to do that at the Needham booth while Bobby was there working on the app, which is great. I was able to get a lot of the normal cast of characters, which was fun. It was a short live stream because it literally was at the booth, just us using the phone, but it was nice to be able to do something live from the show for the first time, which is great. Then we've got our post-expo talk, and then it leads us into controversy number 2, which from a timing perspective was great because it led us into a live stream, which was then also followed by a podcast episode when more things happened. And this is where the whole sports card therapist thing blew up. And that was the situation where he was found out to have been a non-paying bidder in a couple of Eli Manning cards. As far as we know, that's really the extent of the information that we had on specific things that he had done. He did admit to that in an Instagram live stream, gave kind of an apology, but basically within days, the situation kind of snowballed, and then Sports Card Therapist kind of disappeared and then ghosted everybody, and he hasn't been seen around since. And it was kind of interesting, the dramatic way in which things kind of collapsed. And then there was the whole thing with the Wolfpack Network and a lot of those related elements to it. The fact that it happened so quickly kind of made it a lot more newsworthy and discussion worthy than it would have been otherwise if it had just been the initial transgression, so to speak. Whether there was anything more to it, we don't know yet, and we may never know. So it's one of those things where we'll have to see if anything ever comes of it, or if he reappears at some point in 2024 or beyond. But for now, he's off and gone, and the old podcast episodes and everything have all been pulled down. The channel's gone. A lot of the social medias are gone. So he's kind of disappeared for the moment.
I truly subscribe to the notion that you are who you hang with. If you show me your 5 closest friends, I will show you who you are. And I truly believe that.
This episode 51 is my favorite just because of the one specific clip that came out of it. So I will play that now.
I'm a real collector of these cards. Why is it that I don't own the best cards of the player that I collect? Well, guess what? Because you're poor.
And that's it, really. That was particularly the most enjoyable part of it for me. Although we did talk about Juan Soto going to the Yankees and Shohei Ohtani going to the Dodgers. And obviously that's going to have some ramifications in the baseball card market. But it was a lot of fun, really. Once I saw that clip, I definitely had to hang on to it and have some fun with it. Then next up, we talk about Cards HQ, the idea of 24/7 live streaming. Again, it's not going to start on day one from everything we know about it at this point, but I'm still curious to see if it ends up being done, exactly what it's going to look like, what it's going to sound like, if it works. It's one of those things where more than anything, this video was kind of posing the idea and talking through it and posing the question. And we'll have to see in practice what that ends up looking like and how far they actually try to go into the implementation of it. And then we can cast more direct judgment once we actually get a chance to see it in action. But for now, it was kind of fun to speculate on a little bit, and that's the kind of videos that I do enjoy making when I get a chance to kind of talk through it a little bit. Agree or disagree, that's fine, but it's one of those things where at least it's worthwhile for the part of the discussion. And that brings us pretty much right up to the current day, because we've got here the first part of the year in review. This is going to be the third part. We've got the Great Superfractor Heist, which was the thievery of several superfractors, and in this episode, we gave a little bit of context about that, which hopefully was helpful to folks and prompted some good discussion. Then I had my favorite pickups video, the CGC grading scandal. That was a good one because we talked about the superfractors. We had Eric opening a Bruins Centennial box, but then we also talked about the CGC grading scandal for comics. Now, normally not my lane or an area that I spend in, so this is less than a week ago at the time I'm recording this, but that's where we brought on Neo Cards and Comics to kind of give us a little bit of a rundown and talk about it because that is a little bit more in his area. So that's where he earned the "and Comics" section of his namesake, and he was able to give us a little bit more information on it. But it was good discussion because obviously anything that undermines the credibility of a third-party grader in any category is something that can have ramifications in the marketplace. There has been since then an update to that, and I'll probably talk a little bit about it maybe in the end of the year live stream where they did give a little bit of information. I thought it was a good PR announcement anyway. And we'll have to see if they're able to go through with making a lot of the corrections they want to, but they did acknowledge it and at least a starting point of a response for them. So I will mention briefly, I think, in the next live stream so that we can kind of close the loop on that for now. Again, comics isn't my particular area, but I was interested since I thought it was a worthwhile story to discuss. And the very end is the Christmas Eve Live, Spooktacular, and the Christmas episode. And that brings us up to today. So with that, I'm going to move off of this, and then I'm going to throw it back to myself for some concluding thoughts.
Now, hopefully you see why it took so damn long. I was trying to go through as much of that material as possible to make sure I captured some of the things. And as I said, we're going to have some clips here at the very end for you to hopefully enjoy. But I do want to finalize it with a couple of thoughts here. And that is, for the most part, I very much enjoyed producing videos for the channel this year, getting a chance to collaborate with a lot of different folks, doing a lot of different things, having a lot of fun with it, the podcast, and of course the live stream, which is still the flagship of the channel. Now, really quickly, I want to thank everybody again, all the folks that I listed off at the very beginning of the video, and I also want to thank all the commenters, all the regulars on the live streams, everybody that participated in some way or another, everybody that hit the like button so that Eric could pay, very important, very critical to the channel. And I also want to thank everybody at AMG for being friends and supporter of the channel, because that's been extremely helpful and also really a lot of fun to work on them with a lot of the things. I look forward to doing some more of that in 2024, and we'll definitely look at some new opportunities to have take advantage of some more of our ideas that we have. Now, as for plans for 2024 on the channel, a lot of it is going to be staying the course, because I found a lot of the things that I've been doing this past year actually work really well for me, workflow-wise, in terms of getting videos out and being able to produce a lot of the stuff that I want to produce. So that is the plan continuing going forward. I've been enjoying the podcast, so the plan is to continue that. I do want to have some more of those collector conversations. I do have some ideas and some names in mind for some of the stuff that I want to work on, but I did also allude to a possible change in something that I'm working on. Now, the truth is, I say possible because it's still going to be a bit of a work in progress. So I'll give you a little bit of an idea of what I have in mind, and then I'll flesh it out a little bit more in the new year and talk about it some more, probably sometime in January. Now, what I'm referring to specifically is that I mentioned in that middle section a couple of the wrestling and wrestling card related items that I have put together on the channel. Now, truthfully, they get less views than a lot of the other stuff, which in and of itself isn't really an issue. But one of the first thoughts that I had as kind of I was playing around with it, especially towards the tail end of the year, is that I still want to talk about that stuff, but a lot of these folks that are watching this channel for sports card related things really aren't that interested in it. It can still come up as a topic in the live stream, and as it comes to pickup videos and stuff, I'm still going to talk about anything that I pick up because it's a chronicle of whatever comes in. And I actually did get one in the mail, so I probably will put together some kind of a little video here just as a supplement. Although I did also get a Medano card, so it'll be, you'll get a twofer. But the reality is I am chronicling everything that's coming in, including wrestling cards and anything else that I'm collecting. So that aspect really isn't going to change. However, when it comes to the standalone videos talking about either new wrestling products or wrestling itself, I know that there's a lot less interest for it on the channel. I actually have a second YouTube channel that I had been using in the past. It's been dormant now for a little while. And what I'm probably going to be doing with it is I'm going to be rebranding it. It'll be actually very similar to the branding on this one, so it will look familiar if you've seen the stuff on this channel. But the idea is to have that as the place for a lot of this stuff to go and give me a chance to be able to create those videos in a place where if somebody wants to watch it, they can. And if they're not interested in it and they just want the sports card and trading card related stuff, then it'll be right here where it's always been. So that'll be the plan, and it'll give me a little bit of a challenge. In addition to that, the plan is to continue for now the AMG Collectibles YouTube channel, do some work there on the side. So I've been making videos there as well. So it's really been a very full content schedule for me. That's why I'm not committing to anything on that other channel, and that's why I don't want to flesh out too many details until I've kind of worked out the particulars of what I have in mind. Other than that, as I mentioned, I don't expect too many differences here. The flagship, the live stream, is going to be there Fridays at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, talking about hobby-related topics. It'll be the longest-running episodic, whatever it is, same way that it's been. And then at the same time, like I said, I'd like to keep doing the podcast because I'm having a lot of fun with those, and they offer me a different place to be able to talk about some of these things in a different format, which actually works really well. Standalone videos will still happen the way they have been in the past, and then if something moves me or there's some kind of a news item that I do want to chat on, I will do that. I won't cover every piece of news. There are other places where I would recommend you go for that, but if something I think is pertinent that I want to talk about, then I will. So that'll close the door on 2023, heading into 2024. If we don't catch you in the New Year's Eve episode, then have a happy new year. Best of luck in 2024. Like if you like the video, subscribe to the channel. Thanks very much, and we will catch you next year.
There's a really good name of this checklist build, and some interesting sets, and some interesting designs. I'm going to be very clear about that. There are some things legitimately that I like about it, but there's some things like, if I open a box and pull these people, Billy, I may burn you in effigy, is what I'm getting at.
You're gonna have the first autographs of certain players that people are gonna just, their families are gonna want them.
If the family, the point is their families may not want them, Billy. That's my point. My point is I'm not convinced their families want them. Their families are related to them. They can get an autograph anytime they want. Why?
How are you going to make me buy cards? And I've been in this 30 years again. And if I haven't bought cards for 15 years, what are you going to do?
We make a legend set with
guys.
a lot of fake legends, and call it.
Ooh, I'm clipping this so hard. This is officially clipped, and out of context, this will be played ad nauseum.
The NHL's all-time win record now belongs to these Boston Bruins. They win their 63rd game of the season.
A few moments later.
On him. Verhaeghe wins the series for Florida, and this joyride ends in a Hindenburg-like ending. The Bruins are the second record-setting team in a row to drop the series in the first round.
But what you got to do is if you've got like a poster or anything, Bobby, it'll be like release, and you put like the date, but then underneath you got except for Eric.
Yeah, you're releasing it at the show.
The important thing, Eric, is that you'll walk around and everybody will be like, "Hey, do you see Bobby's new?" And literally everyone will have it on their phones. Everyone. Somebody will have it with the Nokia phone that we saw from the MoBA Museum, and it'll somehow run on that phone. And you'll be sitting there like, "Why won't you let me have?" Because you wash your shoes in the washing machine like a heathen.
Heathen.
That's the reason why, Eric. That's the reason why you cannot have nice things.
Eric, real quick, Eric, take a break and go check your front door. It's not a trick. Just go check your door.
I'm not gonna know.
It's not
a trick.
If you see the box and it's ticking, open it.
Take a break and go check your door.
I don't like this at all.
And that was the last we saw of Bougie Eric. Moving on.
All of us in this whole program has just gone off the freaking rails.
The doggy bag crap trick or something? Or no?
That's what I was expecting, that he paid somebody to, light a bag of crap on my front steps. So I go up there and stomp on it. But instead,
holy man.
Disgraceful. Utterly disgraceful.
Those
Bougie
cookies, by
Eric.
the way, are amazing. So enjoy them.
A whole box of cookies, Bougie Eric. After all that.
Oh, they're labeled Bougie Eric as well.
That's awesome.
Holy.
That's wicked.
Yeah, are you serious? This is really cool.
Bougie Eric, have some cookies and stop whining. Your wife get most of them.
That's interactivity, people.
So is this moment right now, the moment that we're in right now, is this like the beginning of me like going heel?
Andy, all I do is offer the platform and the opportunity. This is the chance.
Is this like the moment where like I rip this shirt off and I have like a sports card investor shirt on underneath?
That'd be amazing. Cyclocross isn't even real. Dave, help me. He's made up this stupid cyclocross bullshit sport that he's talking about. When you hear cyclocross, do you not think that the cyclists should be like fighting? They should literally be wielding crosses. Perhaps
Like a
metallic crosses.
Like a joust with crosses.
That's what I'm saying. That's literally what I'm saying, Dave.
It's like something in the back of like the New Testament of the Bible or something.
Or at the very least, in a dystopian film. Like this would be like a sport that they would have in a dystopian film where it's like, this is the blood sport for this era, the 24th century, cyclocross. You will fight for your freedom.
That is not what happens.
I know, it's lame. That sounds cool. What you're talking about is garbage.
It is not lame. There were two wonderful races last weekend that were extremely exciting to watch.
And not a single person died.
And one guy,
which is why yours is trash.
So I snore. This dude takes a video of me sleeping.
I told him I was going to do it.
No, not the first time you did it. So he takes a video of me sleeping to show me that I might have to see the doctor because of the way I'm snoring. When really it creeped me out. So am I wrong for snoring? Like, is it my fault that I'm snoring, or is he wrong for taking a video of me sleeping?
So I think my answer to this question will be as follows. I believe that snoring, for better or worse, is something that happens. It happens. You're not certainly not the first person to have that ever happen. I feel though that maybe recording someone, having a recording studio, a boom mic, a lighting fixture, the level of production that Eric brought, an 8K camera I think was too much. So the point is, an 8K camera was, I think, it speaks to premeditation. This was not a spontaneous event.
Nope.
Yeah, it is kind of weird.
Just a little bit.
A little creepy.
It's not quite washing your shoes in the washing machine weird, but it's pretty strange.
You want the first time you guys met?
Side of it or not?
What was that?
You want to hear my side or not?
Was this the first time you guys met?
I fully intend to twist whatever word you say into more entertainment for me. So yes, I would love to hear your side of it.
Showing caring concern. I was very concerned about this health issue. I wanted him to know just how bad it was, and he was shocked when he heard it.
I was shocked because I woke up, you were standing over me, you pervert.
Did you feel that the production? So Tim, quick follow-up question: did you feel that the production crew and the guy with the boom mic was a bit much?
I thought I was going into the light. I thought I already passed because of sleep apnea. Meanwhile, it's just his flashlight in my eye.
Anyways,